Good afternoon, Stephen Priest with Class1Modelworks.com, and today we're going to talk about Santa Fe way cars. And this is kind of one of my favorite subjects. Of course, anything railroad is going to be my favorite subject, but this is going to be one of my favorite subjects because having built several really large layouts over the years, I have accumulated and built enormous fleets of way cars. I actually have about 170 way cars at last count. And a lot of these are from a variety of other companies, kit bashes. There's some brass in here. There's some brass kits that used to be made that comprise a certain amount of the fleet. And basically, nothing that has come in the door has, for the fleet, has avoided being heavily rebuilt into a form of correctness for use on my railroad. With that said, I really want to save you a lot of that effort, and we wanted to produce a car that came ready to go. I mean, literally out of the box, fantastically detailed, lit, and absolutely detail perfect for your railroad. So that's what we've been working on here for the last year or so, is a Santa Fe way car that really lives up to a high quality, the Class1Modelworks.com name. And so we're going to talk a little bit about this today. So I want to start out with dispelling one of the things about Santa Fe way cars and doing some education, and that is there are actually two types of main body types of cars on the Santa Fe, and they were a peak roof and they were a round roof. And I'm going to set this peak roof right here, and then I'm going to set right next to it, I'm going to set a round roof. And you'll notice, we'll pull them up almost identical here so we can zoom in on them. The peak roof has literally a peak. In other words, it's like your house where you go up to a point on the cupola and you go up to a point on the roof. And the round roof, or the radial roof, actually has a radius. And both of these cars were used side by side. They were built at different times historically, but when the railroad went through to do their rebuild programs, the CE1, CE2s, and 9s and on up, they actually grabbed body styles from both classes or both roof types and rebuilt those. So it was always kind of fun to be out line side on the Santa Fe, and man, there's a peak roof going by and then there's a radial roof going by, and that always added that variety to the prototype. The thing about the peak roof is it has never been produced before in plastic. It's been produced before in brass. It's by several manufacturers, but in plastic, this is the first time. The radial roof here has been produced many times by many different companies. So when we sat down and started thinking about doing cabooses, we're like, you know what, let's do the peak roof because they were so cool and it would just complete anybody's fleet. So if you're a Santa Fe modeler out there, even if you have tons and tons of Santa Fe cabooses, chances are you don't have peak roof cabooses, you've got radial roofs. And you need to put some peak roofs in your fleet, so because there were a lot of them out there running around. Now, with that said, I'm going to pull this caboose off here. There were some fairly decent brass models that were produced. Here's one right here. This is a brass model that was produced a number of years ago, sitting next to the Class 1 Model Works car. And it's an okay model. I mean, for the era and for the time, it was okay. It's a little bulky. The cross sections of things are a little bulky. If you look at if I pull this out like this and you look at the roof walk here, the roof walk is very large. If you were actually an HO scale guy, your foot would fall through that cast grating on the roof. And the other thing that always drove me crazy about these cars was the underframes, because if I take this beautiful brass car and I flip it upside down, there's hardly anything on the underframe. And these cars prototypically, because they had shock control under them, or Duryea underframe, Duryea shock control underframe, and all the generating equipment, the toolboxes, the tool cellars, all that kind of stuff underneath there, they actually look like this. They were a very busy car on the bottom. There was a lot of stuff there. And we have gone out and literally crawled underneath way cars and measured 5 or 6 of them at this point, and to bring you super correct underframes, the Duryea underframe as well as the standard underframes on the earlier cars, and then of course all of the brake piping, all the plumbing, the air handling equipment, all of the generator, the belt-driven generator that goes up and over the axle. It's a fantastic detail part. So a lot of people want to have a super sharp fleet of equipment for their railroad, And these way cars definitely are going to provide that. So many of you have been asking, what the difference between the more modernized cars and the first round or the CE3 cars are. These were done out of numerical sequence, which is weird. So the CE1s and 2s were actually more modernized than the CE3s, if you can believe that. So it's kind of a weird thing that happened. But one of the things that happened with these cars early on is the early rebuilds, the CE3s, were not rebuilt as extensively as the CE2s and CE1s and the later cars. And one of the things that you'll notice is the windows on these cars, they retain their original double hung window, which is like what you have in the house that you go and slide open and let the air in. The later rebuilds actually had sealed windows. If you look at the windows on this car, they have actual rounded corners on them, and they're actually just a sealed piece of tempered glass. And those windows are non-openable. So basically what you ended up with is you end up with the early cars with the double hung, and then the later cars that had the sealed windows. So if you're wondering where you can get these, they're available right now for pre-order on the class1modelworks.com website. And there's several variations of them. Obviously there's black roof variations as well as the red roof variations. So there's a bunch of different variations on there. So hop on and take a look and read through all the descriptions, because the cars were different, because these were the early rebuilds. The CE3 rebuilds were the first of the rebuilds, and wow, they did a lot of stuff to them and a lot of different things to them. So they do vary. They've got different roof walk styles and things like that. Again, go out to class1modelworks.com today and pick these up. They are selling. I'm extremely thrilled with the sales on them, and they probably aren't going to last very long.